Hey, what is up, YouTube? This is Hypergon back again for another Yu-Gi-Oh! Discussion video. This time I'm going to be talking about the upcoming January 2015 ban list and what I think is probably going to either be coming on or going off of the list. Now, bear in mind, this is my own personal preferences, my own biases, and there are plenty of biases on this list. So if there's something you don't like, don't get all hasty about it. This is just what I think is personally going to be on the ban list, or what I hope is going to be on it. But enough rambling. Let's go ahead and get started with Forbidden or at 0. There's only one card I can potentially see going on there, and that's Vanity's Emptiness. Now, before you all get in a puff about it, I know everyone wants this card hit, but not a lot of people actually want it completely gone. But at the same time, we have cards like Royal Oppression that basically do the same thing and are banned. Let's not pretend like this isn't an incredibly unhealthy card for the game as a whole. So it makes sense that they would, but at the same time, it would make sense to me if they also just put it at 1. 0 or 1 for Vanity's Emptiness, either or, as long as it's less than it is right now. But that's all I have for the Forbidden section. For Limited, I got quite a few cards, so sit tight for this one. First ones are on the Limited list for me are more to keep the top tier decks in check so they're not too overpowered. First one would be for those lovely little Cleaforts, Skill Drain. It's one of the big cards that a lot of Cleafort players use. Just get out all their big monsters, shut down your opponent, and then make their big monsters even bigger. It's just, quite honestly, stupid. It's annoying to deal with, and it'd just be better off if it was at 1, so it's not as useful. Plus, they're going to be getting their own anyway, so it's not like it even makes a difference if we do hit it. But they shouldn't have 6 copies of Skill Drain in the deck. That's just dumb. Next up is the not as popular anymore, but the Shadal archetype. I think in this case the best way to hit them, even though they're still relatively new and Konami doesn't usually hit main deck cards for newer decks that they're trying to still sell, I think the best hit for this one would actually be Shadal Fusion. The only reason I'm not saying go for one of the El Shadals or some other card is because Shadal Fusion for me is the card that really makes the deck exceptionally stupid. They can just... The fact that they can fuse monsters in their main deck, as long as the opponent has a special summon monster on the field, which is not a difficult condition to meet, it's just too much. And you know, since at least one of the monsters, if not 2 of them, are going to be Shadal monsters, they're going to get some sort of a plussing effect whenever that monster is sent to the graveyard for the fusion. Plus, they're going to have a window or a construct or whatever hit the field. It's too much. If you hit window or construct or any of those other ones, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And it's not like it's going to be limiting their fusion capabilities. They're still going to have El Shadal fusion, Super Poly, and God forbid regular polymerization still an option for them. So it wouldn't cripple the deck, but it would definitely keep it more in balance. And obviously, if we're talking about top tier decks, we got to mention the biggest deck of them all, the Burning Abyss. There's a lot of talk of people saying what it is that they think should be hit for this deck. It's usually between Burning Lake, Dante, or Tour Guide. In my case, I'm opting for Dante in this one. I don't really feel like Tour Guide would really do a whole lot. Yeah, it'd slow them down, but I mean, they'd still be able to pull off their ridiculous combos. And while Fire Lake is a huge problem, it's only really such a big problem because you can search it and you can recover it through Dante, which is ridiculous. Plus, Dante isn't just for Burning Abyss. He's in any deck that can rank 3 at all. So it's kind of ridiculous that he's even still at 3. I realize that will essentially cripple the deck, and so it's not like the Konami will do that. But I don't really think that putting it at 2 would make a difference, because if you have the 2, you can still loop endlessly with them. So I don't think putting it to 2 would help, and I know that putting it to 1 will probably kill them. But I haven't actually played that many Burning Abyss, so I don't really know the deck all that well, other than the fact that it's just ridiculous. That's about all I know about it. But that's just my opinion on that. Next up is more the cards that need to come off of the ban list to be put at 1. Starting that off, of course, you have the one everyone is saying, Elemental Hero Stratos. He has been on there way too long, and with all the search power that heroes have now, with Rhoda being at 3, E-Call being at 3, and even with the new structure deck coming out, they're going to have Dark Mist also at 3. Why not? Just give them Stratos. It doesn't even matter at this point. It's not like they're going to be any better or worse for it. Plus, it gives them a win target in case they want to make Great Tornado or Kamikaze or whoever. And as I said, with the new structure deck coming out, it makes good business sense for Konami to put Stratos off the ban list. You know, help promote the deck and all that good jazz. The next two cards are actually more supported by the Secrets of Eternity pack coming out, since they're supporting some old archetypes, namely, in this case, Wind-Ups and My Beloved Dragunities, so it makes sense that they would take care of some of the cards that have been on the ban list from those archetypes, namely, Wind-Up Carrier Zenmaigi and Dragon Ravine. I am sure you are all shaking your head at the Dragon Ravine. Wind-Up Zenmaigi kind of makes some sense. I'm just going to go ahead and go to that one. I know no one wants to see Ravine come back, except for the Dragunity players like myself. However, the only reason it got banned was because of the Dragon Rulers, and they're all at 1 now. All their good support is at 1, like Gold Sarcophagus, the Sword of 7 Stars, and Super Rejuvenation is banned, so it's not like they could even do anything with that. The deck is essentially dead, so if you bring Ravine back just to 1, I'm not saying bring it back to 3, even I'll admit that was stupid. I'll openly admit the faults of my own deck. Ravine does not need to come back to 3. If it does, I won't complain, but it doesn't need to. Just 1 is fine. Mostly because we Dragunity players need a means to search out our ducks, but that's a rant for another video. Next up, I have Dark Strike Fighter coming back. Since they redid his effect to make him just once per turn, there's no real reason for him to stay off. It's not like you can do the Dark Strike Fighter OTK like you could back in the Dark Ages. He's pretty fair now, actually. It's just generic rank 7 that can beat and do some burn damage now. It's not like he's excessive anymore like he used to be. The next two cards I have are actually kind of odd choices, and this is, again, where some of my bias is coming in. But with the last ban list bringing back Raigeki, anything's possible. So next two cards I have, I don't care which one, but if either one does, that'd be great. Heavy Storm and or Giant Trunade. Okay, now before you all start getting in an uproar, hear me out. We have Dark Hole and Raigeki for monsters, and with this becoming a very heavy back row and Pendulum's becoming a thing, there's no real reason why these cards shouldn't be there. We need a means of punishing all the back row used in this deck. And I don't feel like we should get back Harpy's Feather Duster. Even I'll admit that's too much. That's why I opted for Giant Trunade instead. It's a temporary fix that doesn't hurt you, but unless you can OTK them that turn, you're going to have the same problem next turn when they just reset everything or reactivate everything. It's just a temporary fix, and Heavy Storm still has still has that negative effect of also getting rid of your spell and traps. And what you're saying, well, you can activate when you don't have any set spell traps. Well, true, but same logic with Dark Hole when you just activate when you don't have any monsters, and yet we have Dark Hole. Again, I know that this is kind of unlikely, but it's just kind of a hope. Just something to help balance it out. The next few cards are, again, things that are currently banned that should probably come back. But these are more, not because I feel like they'd be helpful for the game, but because they're more the who cares cards. Like, they're cards that don't need to be banned anymore, but they still are for some stupid reason. The first one of them is Trishula. The OCG has Trishula back. They have for at least, what, 2 formats now? And it's not like it's going to do anything. It requires 2 non-tuners, so it's not even like it's easy to get out. Most Synchro decks can't easily get up to level 9 with 3 monsters. I'm not saying it can't be done, but most decks aren't going to devote the resources to that. They're probably going to go for something else, or just make a bigger play. Trishula is not really the best option. Plus, with the Necroz coming out, we're going to have a version of Trishula that is 10 times easier to get out. So why not just give the rest of us who aren't playing Necroz something to humor us with, if nothing else? It's not going to change the game. Next up is Thousand Eyes Restrict. Kind of the same thing with Trishula, only more of a who cares card, because no one's going to be running Thousand Eyes Idle and Relinquished. No one expecting to win, at least. The only legitimate way you could probably even get out Thousand Eyes Restrict with the cards that are legal is Instant Fusion, and that's a one-turn thing. So I guess you could use it to like, take a monster, lose Thousand Eyes Restrict, and then the equipped monster just goes to the graveyard. But that seems like kind of a waste of deck space. It'd be interesting to see what people try and do with it, but I don't see it being relevant to the games. It's just, well, bring it back. It doesn't even matter. Next is Tribe Infecting Virus. There's been a few people on YouTube I've seen who've been saying this card needs to come back because it won't do anything, and I agree. Not to say that it won't have its option, it won't have its moments. I mean, it can easily target its effect on cards, on decks like the Burning Abyss, which are all Fiends, or the Shaddolls, which are all Spellcasters. But you have to bear in mind, there's a trade-off to that. You're sending those cards to the graveyard, and they like to be destroyed and sent to the graveyard. So while it would be kind of a cool card to have back, it won't do anything beneficial, really. It'll basically only be good against the lower decks that, quite honestly, usually have a bit more diversity in their monster typing, so it probably won't even be that good. In your most ideal situation, Tribe Infecting Virus is okay at best, so there's no reason for it to stay banned. And the last of my Who Cares cards is probably the least likely to come off, and again is partially on my own bias, and that is Sangan. Now, why is it biased for me to want Sangan back? Well, for the same reason I want Ravine back. I need some means of searching out ducks. But since I'm holding off on the Ravine rant for a later video if it doesn't come back, I'll just go ahead and explain Sangan now. With how slow it is, it won't impact any deck. Even with it being a level 3 Fiend, I can't even see a Burning Abyss deck wanting to use this guy. I mean, maybe, but why bother when you have so many better options within the own archetype? And then it just makes the other decks that are less relevant now, gives them some good search options that aren't specific to their own archetype. It won't really make a big difference. It's not going to be that game-breaking. It's just a little something. Now, again, I realize it's not likely, but hey, Konami's done weird things before. Again, we have Raigeki again. So, who knows? That's it for the limited section. Up next is the semi-limited. This is going to be a lot shorter. Only got 2 cards. The first one is Rescue Rabbit. Let's not kid ourselves, this card has not seen any real use since the good old days of Dino Rabbits. And it'd be kind of interesting to see that deck come back. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of good decks that can actually run the Evolzars. I mean, the Evols themselves are okay at best, and the only other deck I've seen that can really do it, other than Dino Rabbits, is Jurax, and they're not really that good anymore, since they're attack reliant. So, it'd be cool to see the Evolzars get some use again. If just bring Rescue Rabbit to... I don't think it needs to be at 3, and even if it was 3, I don't think that'd be very good. I mean, it could have its uses, I don't know, but to me it just seems like it would just need to be at 2 to get some use. You can put up to 3 if you want, but we just need some more Rescue Rabbits, just to bring some more variety to the game, some more under-the-radar decks, if you will. And the other card for semi-limited is Torrential Tribute. This is primarily to help keep pendulums in line. A lot of people have been saying, you know, either this or Bottomless. I feel like, while I prefer there be more Bottomless, I feel like Torrential is the more likely option, just because if you were to Bottomless Pendulum Summon Field, they'd all be banished. And obviously that's not going to make a whole lot of people want to play Pendulum decks. That's bad business for Konami. But if you have Torrential Tribute, it'll just blow them all up, and then they'll just go to the extra deck so you can bring them out next turn. It's more of a temporary fix. So it's less likely to discourage people from playing Pendulum decks, but still give some other decks some variety and the means of fighting back. Finally is the unlimited section. First off is Gores. A lot of people are saying they want Gores and Tragodia back. I can't see Tragodia coming back. I mean, it to me is just an infinitely better card than Gores. Yes, Gores will consistently have high attack, but that's about all it's got coming out as a hand trap. Tragodia can manipulate its level, steal cards, and with trains kind of becoming a thing, him being level 10 is helpful. So, try to stay at 2, but I feel like Gores can come back to 3 and it not change a thing. Next up is Gale the Whirlwind. Kind of like with other cards we've seen slowly crawling their way out of the ban list, like, God, what do you call it? Wolfbark and, God, what was its name? The flip-it monster that grabbed a spell from your graveyard. You guys know what I'm talking about. They crawled out of the ban list just fine and changed nothing. Well, it's not like Black Wings are really a relevant deck anymore. They could be, but even with Gale at 3, I don't see them being that good. I don't see them topping anything. So I think it just for the sake of Blackwings being a little bit better, it couldn't hurt to bring him back. And next up is another deck that could probably use some support. Gladiator Beast, specifically Bestiari back at 3. There's no reason for him to still be banned. Glads haven't done a thing in God knows how long. Popping one card is the same thing an MST does, and MST is still a 3. And you got to really work for Bestiaries more than you do in MST. So just bring them back to 3. Let Glads think they're going to be good again. Who knows? We might actually see some good Glad decks. I'd be happy with that. And then finally is Hieratic Seal of Convocation. Simply put for that, if we can have 3 Rotas, why can't Hieratics have their own search card at 3? There is no reason for that. Hieratics don't really do anything other than give us Unity players false hope. But yeah, that's my ban list prediction so far. Tell me what you guys think. Should be coming out within a couple of weeks. Hopefully, at least some of the stuff I've said is correct. If nothing else, they need to hit vanities. Everything else I said can be wrong. Even my Precious Ravine can be wrong. But they need to take care of vanities. If you take nothing else away from this list, take that. But until next time, this is Hypergon. Peace.